In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace your exhaust pipe that runs between the exhaust manifold and the muffler / mid pipe. The process that I'm going to show you will be on the driver's side, but of course this will be the exact same on the passenger side, just over there. So let's get started. I'm going to start with removing this downstream O2 sensor, which is the one towards the end of the pipe. Slide your oxygen sensor socket on here. This might be a little difficult just because it's kind of rusted into place here, but hopefully with some heat and persuasion we can get this off of here. Oh, wow, that broke free. I'm going to try and get my socket off of here now. Let's go ahead and unthread this. Keep in mind the wire is still attached to the vehicle, so it's going to want to spin a bunch of times. So just be careful not to damage the wire. Okay, there it is. At the front of the pipe there is another one. This is the upstream. So put the O2 sensor socket on here. Oh, I think it broke free. Yep. Hopefully yours works out as well as mine just did, and you don't have to use heat, because sometimes you have to use heat to get these to break free. So just like the other one, let's unthread the sensor. If you follow the wire up, you can disconnect the sensor so you can have more wiggle room in the wire. And now you can finish unthreading it without the wire twisting around. There it is. Where the pipe that we're replacing meets the pipe that goes to the muffler, well, that should be a removable piece of hardware. It is not anymore, so I'm going to have to cut it. And the way I'm going to do it is I'm actually just going to cut this bolt right here and hopefully break it so that it falls apart. And then obviously I'm going to have to replace this clamp with a brand new one. If yours is still in reusable condition, reuse it. Mine is not. So I'm just going to, like I said, cut it off, but you do whatever you have to do to get this separated. Guess I didn't even have to cut it because it broke up top. This clamp is actually attached to the pipe, but the pipe is in really poor condition. I'm not reusing this clamp, so I'm going to have to pry it off and cut it, do whatever I have to do to get this completely out of here so I can replace it. Well, this is pretty rusted in here, but we'll deal with this in a minute. It's unclamped, ready to go. Let's go to the other side and unbolt it from the manifold. There should be two mounting nuts that hold this pipe onto the manifold. For me, they're 14 millimeter in size, but for you, this might be different because I have aftermarket hardware here, so it's not going to be the same. But whatever you have, go ahead and remove it. One over here, and another one right over here. Now you can pull this collar down, and as you can see, the pipe moves. It has come off of the manifold. If your hardware is a lot rustier, you can always use some heat, kind of heat it up a little bit to help it break free. Now with that unbolted, you can pull this down, and you can see it comes off the manifold, and it actually pivots on the pipe in the back. And this is great news because that means it has separated. I just have to wiggle it, maneuver it out of the way. There it is. Okay, twist it, and there you have it. Now the same way the old one came out, let's put the new one in. So slide it in from the front. And this one should be a little bit easier to fit just because it doesn't have those flanges. As you put it in, try to slide it into this other exhaust pipe here. That way it's at least somewhat situated. Now try to bring it up here and position it. Slide this collar on and have your mounting nuts ready. If you're wondering, this does not take a gasket. The pipe is flared out and the manifold has that thick area, and the pipe actually will squish up against the manifold and create its own seal. So no gasket required here. Okay, make sure these are not cross-threading. Let's grab our tool. I'm going to go back and forth between the two. That way this flange can seat itself properly and seal up the exhaust. And now that this is bolted on up front, let's bolt it on here. I'm going to use a new clamp. This is the style clamp that I chose to use. And this is probably a very common one that you can find to replace the factory one. Just bolt it right on like this and clamp it down nice and tight. And that should hold everything in place and seal up the exhaust. Now, if you do have an exhaust leak here afterwards, what you can do is take this clamp off, pull the pipe back out, and they do make some exhaust gasket maker. It's kind of like a silicone that's very, very high temp. You can lather it up in there, bolt it back up, squish it down, and that should take care of your exhaust leak. You definitely do not want exhaust fumes going into your passenger compartment. In order to not potentially over tighten this, I'm just going to do this by hand. Snug it down. This for me is a 14 millimeter, but obviously for you it might be different. All right, nice and tight. Let's put the oxygen sensors back in, slide it in, make sure the wire doesn't twist up too much. I recommend putting a thin layer of anti-seize on the threads. This will do two things. It'll help installation because the threads will slide easier, but it will also hopefully help this thing not seize up further down the line if it ever has to be taken out for replacement. So once that's nice and tight, let's go ahead and plug in the wire. Now I'm going to put my O2 sensor tool on here. I'm going to go ahead and tighten this up as much as I can. All right, that's nice and tight. Let's do the same to the rear sensor, except for this one, I'm going to twist it counterclockwise a bunch of turns first. That way, because this one isn't unplugged, when the threads thread in, it can straighten out the wire as it's threading in. You don't want the wire to be very twisted because it'll break over time. Go ahead and snug this one down. All right, that's nice and tight.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.